I had the privilege of racing against Rich Bickle all season. Today, we talked about his experience racing against Alan.
How you been, Rich?
Yeah, not too bad.
For the last 7 days of the Quickie program, and just asking them questions about Alan and how they knew him and some of their memories. And so the first one is, what kind of racer was Alan?
Well, it's funny how I tell people, we kind of laughed at him when he went down south because when he did that, I consider him about a 10th place guy up here. And I didn't race with him all that much. Because he did more ASA than I did. I only did 1 year ASA and he ran Smarco race together, but really didn't know him till probably started like in '89. And that story is even funnier, but never really raced with him that much and never got to know him because he wasn't like the normal guy. Like, we'd drink beer and have fun after the races. He was so methodical and, he was there and he was there to race and that was it. He wasn't personable that way. So, I really never got a chance to meet him that well until later on.
So when you raced with him, was he more of an aggressive guy or kind of laid back?
Well, when we finally started racing together, he was more laid back than aggressive that I always thought. He was methodical. He thought a lot. He took care of his stuff, and that's how he won the championship. I mean, he won the championship from inside the car, and that's pretty amazing that knew where he had to finish to, what he had to do to win that deal. He was a great thinker.
Alan was known as tough to get along with. As a racer, what type of relationship did you have with him?
Well, it didn't start out too good. In 1989, he come to Slinger for the Nationals, and in the dash, I mean, he was doing I call it the Alex Prunty line. Coming in high, cuts across the middle. I was underneath 3 or 4 times, and I walked up to him after the race, and it's like, Alan, this isn't your house no more; it's mine. I pretty much told him, get the hell out of my way, and it was like, I was, I was on the top of the world there, and he just coming into, to race. So as the story goes, later in the year, Jim Doyle from the Dells had a cup car and Wegner put me together with him. We went down to Charlotte for the cup race and my first chance to make a cup race. So there were so many cars there that we had to park up underneath the trailer, underneath the ramp, because we had no garage stall. So ironically, we made the show. I think we qualified 37th or 8th or 9th, somewhere in there. And I got a garage spot. And who do I get parked next to? Alan Kulwicki. He wouldn't even acknowledge I was a human being. And I'm like going, boy, I'm in his house now. Kind of funny how the tides changed in 3 or 4 months. It was quite ironic.
Huh.
That whole weekend, he would not even acknowledge. He wouldn't look at me, wouldn't talk to me. And I get it. But so that was the race in '89 that I'll never forget between me and him, and how the scenarios changed. So he was in my house and I was in his house.
So did that relationship ever get better?
Well, ironically, we ran Atlanta with that car, and then we come home and cut the body off it and had put Oldsmobile body in it to go to Daytona. And we didn't have Wegner didn't do an engine, restricted plate motors, so we just took off the car or motor in the car and went to Daytona. We're going to rent one. Well, we got there, and Mike Fryer had the only rental motor there, and it was 25 horsepower off. Well, 25 horsepower in the Daytona is every 7 miles an hour. Our horsepower is 1 mile an hour. So we're 3.5 miles an hour off the pace to begin with. So I don't remember where we qualified. We did our deal. We got in the 125s. And I mean, I had the car so free that, just to get any speed out of it at all, somehow I got hooked up with Alan in the 125. And he picked me up 8 miles an hour, which 8 miles an hour at Daytona don't sound like a lot. But when I was already as free as I could be, I remember, I was stuck on his bumper, or he's dragging me up through there. And I can remember looking in my mirror and seeing the smoke off the right rear tire going through 3 and 4. And he I stuck with him, and we made the race. He got me to 15th and put us in the Daytona 500. And he come running over to me after the race. He goes, "Oh my God, you did a great job. You picked me up 4 miles an hour. we have to get hooked up in the 500. I said, I can't because I'm going to die. He said, what? I said, I can't hold my breath that much longer. And he laughed. And I said, dude, I said, I was sideways. He said, well, you did a heck of a job. We get hooked up to 500. He said, let's go. And we never did get hooked up to 500. But so after that moment, I think I proved to him that I could do what I was doing, and he accepted that. And so the next that in 90 there, I won, I don't know how many races we won, a lot. We ran 136 races that year. Between the short track deal, the ARCA races, the cup race. And so I won all the races at the end of the year, 13 of the 15. And I stopped at a guy's shop in North Carolina where a buddy of mine from Illinois worked. And we got talking, and all of a sudden the crew chief comes out and he goes, oh, we never thought about you. Do you want to drive our cup car next year? This is in November. And I'm like, well, yeah, okay. So, I went from thinking, I'm on top of the short track world. I had everybody throwing money at me, every parts manufacturer. I mean, I turned it all down to live my dream in the Cup Series. So that deal, make a long story short, ended up to be a disaster. The guy from Terminal Truck and Gene Eisenhower come basically saved me. We put our short track deal program back together. He bought a cup car. It's either in 92, I think it was. And before that, Alan called me and said, hey, can you come move some stuff for me? And so I went over to the shop and I moved some cars and some stuff for him. And we kind of hit it off, and we got talking about life and racing and my thoughts and his thoughts and goals. And so when Gene bought the cup car, we're going to Wilkesboro. And I called Alan for his setup. And he goes, sure. And he gave me everything. And we went to run that race. And it's hard to believe that a 400 lap race in North Wilkesboro never had a yellow flag. And I was so fast in that race that I think I unlapped myself under the green like 3 or 4 times. But the problem was my pit crew, I had my standard guys. Well, back then a fast pit stop was 20 seconds. Well, ours were 40 seconds. So I lost, more laps than I should have. And about a month after we ran that race, Dale Jarrett come up to me and says, man, every time you pitted, I pitted. And I go, why? He goes, I had to have something happened to his car early on. He lost like 40, 50 laps. He says, so I come and pitted so I could laugh at your pit crew. I'm like, well, are you kidding me? I said, why don't you give me your guys? I'd have won the race. Because Jeff Bodine won the race, if I believe right. And he's basically the only guy that didn't pass all day. And so we hit it off from there, and, went to more races and asked some questions. He helped me a lot. And, unfortunately that when he won the championship in 92 was, basically Jeff Gordon's first race, Richard Petty's last race. And I'm actually the guy that Richard Petty run into and caught fire. A lot of people don't know that. I still have the bumper cover. I had him sign it, but and the next year we lost Alan the plane wreck.
Wow. Something else. It can change in the blink of an eye, It's just crazy.
Just sad, I mean, that hit a lot of people really hard, and I was one of them, because it's like one from opposite ends of the world to being on the same side. And it was just a sad day. I mean, I've had 4 scenarios like that in racing. I was the first one to wall in 81. Pat Schauer got killed. I won my first ever feature the night Larry Degens got killed with his motor in the car. And, I was good friends with Adam Petty. It just unfortunate. Me and Tony Roper drove the nuclear sub simulator together out in Washington, and, his deal in Texas, and just unfortunate things happen. But, Alan's deal hit me hard.
Do you remember that day playing in clear?
Yeah, it's just, it's just crazy, and then later, after I drove for Rick Hendrick the one race, that John Hendrick, that the plane went down, and it just makes you, think about life. And that's why
Yeah.
like I said, this is gonna be my last year because I want to do other things. I've been doing it for so long that
Yeah.
you never know how long you got. You never know what can happen tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. If Alan were here today, what do you think his role would be in the racing world?
Well, that's a good question. I doubt if he'd still be racing,
Mm-hmm.
but I would hope that he would have took over NASCAR and would have been like the guy in charge. That's what I would think he'd been great at. But we'll never know.
You think he was better on the inside or the outside?
I think he's great at both. I mean, uh, like I said, I mean, for him to come up to me and then, start helping me after our, 89 debacle, I guess you'd call it, but it's just how life is, it's like with me and you.
Yeah.
We never talked this year.
Yeah.
And now I'm, trying to help you and, cause you got a future and he tried to help me. He realized that I was a racer, when you come to Daytona without a motor and you're limping along and he basically come and congratulated me and said, come on, let's go race the 500, so it just opened the eyes up and it was like, that's pretty cool for me.
Do you think Alan had any signature moves on the track?
It's hard to say.
Yeah.
I just think he was so calculated, you know, I think me and him are a lot alike in a way. Far as sometimes you don't have the best car, but you get it there.
Yeah.
And he was talented, and like I said, we all laughed at him when he went down south because we didn't think that he was even who would do that. I mean, who would you're not even to the top level. I mean, you're not even on top yet. But he sure all proved us wrong. I mean, I got to congratulate him for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Crazy story. What do you miss most about Alan?
I suppose that we didn't get to spend more time together and race more together. I think with me helping him and him helping me, I think we both could help each other. Obviously him more than me, help me more than me help him. But I think it'd been really cool to been able to bounce stuff off him, and he asked me a bunch of questions about what I thought about things, and I would always consider myself a really good chassis guy. Like the story in the book with me driving Hendrick's car at Pocono. I mean, um, when the shot kid, which is now a crew chief, said I told him more than one day than their driver that I relieved for told them in the whole year. That's pretty amazing to me.
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of hit on this before, but what was your greatest memory of Alan?
I think it's probably asking Ford to take the tee off the nose and make it underbird because he was the underdog, and let him do that and to go out and win the race from the seat. So I think that was he calculated what he had to do from inside the car, and I always thought that the crew chief did that, but they said no, Alan was the one that was making the calls on that race. So it's pretty special.
Mhm. So, like, I heard stories from before that, like, he made all the adjustments throughout practice and stuff, like no one else would touch the track bar and the springs to change them. And so it's just cool to, see someone like that because, I mean, nowadays it's so different that you don't have a lot of people. I mean, the only person that I would compare to him is you. Like nowadays, you can't compare, anyone, you know, Alan was so different, and it's cool to hear them stories that he was so personal about his stuff. And I mean, it's just crazy that he did everything on his race car and mastered it, you know.
Well, I mean, back then you had to. I mean, we all grew up in that era where, you know, lucky to have a guy or two on, in the shop once in a while. And I mean, all my guys had full-time jobs. And
Yeah.
when I quit in '83, I mean, that was pretty much it. I mean, I built bodies and, did a lot of work for other people. And I did a lot of work for, a lot of my friends, Johnny Ziegler and Jerry Wood. And so you learn from the building side of it, but then you learn from the seat. You know what that car is telling you. And I think that, these cars nowadays are so technical that with me and Tony, I'm at the point now where I don't even ask what's in the car no more, because after the Dells last year, I made some changes and it didn't work. And I was kind of frustrated. So I just said, I'll just tell you what the car is doing and, what he's, bump stops and all that is. It's just a different world. But, back then I took pride in what I knew what I wanted in the car, and it worked out well.
So none of that bump stop stuff you guys had or any of that.
No. I didn't have that until I started driving for Tony. I mean,
really?
even in 12 and 13, when I won Rockford and Slinger with my old car, I still had my Carreras and 500, 600 pound springs in the car. So, it's been it's been a learning experience for me too.
Yeah. Just crazy times how technology develops and, new stuff comes out, and there's always something great that everyone wants to try. And it's cool to hear these stories. It really is. I've really enjoyed, talking to these people and just listening to how he was and what he did, his passion for racing and just how he went through the levels. It's cool to listen to and just cool to remember, because I, obviously didn't live in that time. So, it's cool to hear stories about it. And yeah, it's definitely a different time now than it was back then. Yeah. Well, all right. That's all I got for you, So
All right, kid. We'll see you in
I
Dells.
appreciate it. Thank you, Rich. Yeah, you
All right,
have a
bud.
good one.